So your state, you're talking about the sanctity of life. Your state had one of the highest maternal mortality rates in the country, according to the CDC, up until about 2021. Arkansas is one of the few states that hasn't extended postpartum care for mothers. Why don't you want those moms to get care for a full 12 months, as is being offered, instead of just 60 days?
Well, I'm going to have to disagree with the premise of your question, saying that I don't want that. I certainly want us to do everything that we can to help during pregnancy and well after a child is born, which is why we have done things like focus on the foster and adoption care. We've put significant funding into our pregnancy crisis centers. We're focusing on things that help our mothers, including bring your kids to work at state government. We've expanded maternity leave for state employees. We included that in our education package. We have taken a number of steps that are very positive in this front, and we're going to continue to do that as long as I'm governor.
But the states of Mississippi, Wyoming, Montana, South Dakota, they did extend for 12 months rather than the 60 days. So I'm just wondering specifically on that option, why you opted out.
We're going to continue to look at options that we feel like best help people here in the state of Arkansas. We've done that in a number of ways, and we're going to continue to do that over the course of hopefully the next 7 years while I'm governor of Arkansas.
Hold on, let me make sure I heard that correctly. Sarah Huckabee Sanders offers up, as a rationale for not extending postpartum care for mothers, that Arkansas has implemented bring your kids to work at state government? Good news for all those new Arkansas moms out there. Sure, you might not get extended postpartum care, but what you do get, under the brave leadership of Sarah Huckabee Sanders, is permission to bring a 60-day-old child into the office. Frankly, best case scenario. I can't think of any place a new mom would rather be than her cubicle, and I can't think of any place her coworkers would rather be than dealing with a 2-month-old 10 feet away from them. And they say Republicans aren't the party of family values. Now, you'll notice in the initial clip how Sarah Huckabee Sanders claims that she doesn't agree with the premise of the question that she's asked, which dealt with postpartum care, and so instead she pivots to suggest that Arkansas has been focusing on adoption and pregnancy crisis centers. So that we're clear, those two have nothing to do with postpartum care. Adoption is for mothers who opt not to keep the child, which no is not the same as caring for a child after birth, and pregnancy crisis centers are where conservatives influence pregnant women who want abortions not to get one. Again, neither of these has anything to do with postpartum care, but Sarah Huckabee Sanders has no choice to pivot to unrelated topics because saying anything, irrespective of how unrelated, is better than saying the truth, which is that Republican government is not interested in helping regular people, it is interested in helping the ultra-wealthy and corporations, neither of which stand to gain anything from extending postpartum care. But I want to zoom out for a moment because for as long as I can remember, Republicans have been presenting themselves as the arbiter of all things protecting mothers and children. They've shoved down our throats for years that if you want to care for moms, care for babies, the only party you should even fathom helping you are the Republicans. And yet their actions tell a far, far different story. The Commonwealth Fund published a study showing that the states with the strictest abortion laws, for example, have the weakest maternal and child health outcomes. It focused on 14 Republican-led states: Alabama, Indiana, Kansas, Kentucky, Louisiana, Mississippi, Nebraska, North Dakota, Ohio, Oklahoma, South Carolina, South Dakota, Texas, and of course, Sarah Huckabee Sanders' home state of Arkansas. All of those states, again, are run by Republican legislatures. They don't get to blame the communist Marxist Democrats because those people have virtually no power there. And yet still, they are leading the nation on measures like worse maternal mortality rates. The fact is that behind the scapegoating and deflecting, Republicans are putting their priorities on full display. These people aren't pro-life, they are pro-birth, and their compassion ends the moment a human is actually born. And by the way, the data bears out those consequences pretty clearly. Of the 15 states with the highest child poverty rates, 12 voted for Trump. And of the 15 states with the lowest child poverty rates, 11 voted for Biden. And it's not any better for maternal mortality rates. Of the 15 states with the highest maternal mortality rate, 12 voted for Trump. Of the 15 states with the lowest maternal mortality rate, 13 voted for Biden. Any way you cut this, it becomes clear that while Republicans parade themselves around like these great defenders of life, none of the actual facts support that claim. You can fit the Titanic between what these people say and what they actually do. And look, the fact is that on every metric, Republicans have failed to show that they even care mildly about life. They fall over themselves grandstanding about protecting these babies, and yet they vote against childcare. They vote against early education. They vote against universal pre-K. They vote against the child tax credit. They vote against SNAP, where half the recipients are children. They vote against Medicaid, where again, half the recipients are children. When Republicans stripped women of their reproductive rights, we read in horror about young girls forced to give birth after being assaulted. The only thing it seems that Republicans are actually for is forcing women to give birth. And then after that forced government intervention, well, it's more of a hands-off approach. And that is the point of all of this. Republicans aren't interested in anything other than branding. They want to sell themselves off as being defenders of children because A, it sounds good, and B, it offers a nice little distraction, some plausible deniability when they try to enact their actual agenda, which, by the way, doesn't do shit for kids or their mothers. Making healthcare less affordable and lowering the tax rate for billionaires and cutting earned benefits and refusing to raise the minimum wage and blocking student loan debt relief, is any of that agenda popular? Does that even help kids or their moms? Of course not. But it is not about reality. Again, it's about branding. Something they have to lean on extra heavily because when the product sucks, the packaging better be really nice. Let's not pretend that Republicans don't know that. And to that point, we've recently seen a raft of their so-called values get exposed. They claimed, for example, to be the party of family values, then they turned around and supported Donald Trump, the guy who paid off porn stars and escorts for affairs, including while his wife was at home pregnant with their son. They claimed to be the party of states' rights, and then during the 2020 election, while trying to illegally subvert the election results, they all signed on to the Texas lawsuit to discard the election results in Georgia, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Or how they applauded the overturning of Roe because it should be up to the states. Only then what happened? Republicans started calling for, you guessed it, a nationwide ban on abortion. So I guess it's only a states issue until they can make it a national one. They claim to be the party of fiscal responsibility. And what happened the last time Republicans took full control of government? They added $7.8 trillion to the debt. And for what? A tax cut that overwhelmingly favored millionaires and billionaires. They claim to be the party of jobs. Now, not only did Trump lose the most jobs of any president in modern American history, but in my entire lifetime, there has not been a single Republican president that's created more jobs than a Democratic president. Republicans still parade themselves around as if they've got this monopoly on jobs, when not only do they not have a monopoly, they don't have any winning stats to point to against Democrats. And finally, Republicans claim to be the party of the police, and yet, well, I'm not even sure I have to remind anyone what happened on January 6th. I'm pretty sure it was only one party whose supporters who managed to bludgeon police officers, and if memory serves me correctly, it wasn't the Democrats. I know that there are probably a broad range of ways to support the cops. Pretty sure trying to murder them isn't one of them. So the Sarah Huckabee Sanders of the party will continue to deflect and obfuscate to try to make their draconian positions, like their positions on women's reproductive rights, for example, seem more humane, but it's not. And that's precisely why it's supported by less than a third of Americans. And as we head toward November, I have no doubt that Americans will yet again make it abundantly clear that it's her decision what a woman does with her own body. And as for the GOP, people like Sarah Huckabee Sanders are just making it even more obvious that they're not actually about small government in the slightest. They are about consolidating power for themselves and imposing their own theology onto everyone else. Before you go, I need some help. Please subscribe to the channel and do your part to help grow the progressive media ecosystem. I don't do sponsorships or paid ads, I won't ask for money, but just subscribing to this channel goes a really long way, and it helps get the message out to more people. The subscribe button is right here on the screen. You can also subscribe to my Spanish language channel, which I made to reach those crucial Spanish-speaking voters. That link is on the screen too. And finally, if you want to listen to my audio podcast, you can follow that link as well. Thanks so much for watching.